Welcome back to Get More Sports. I'm your host, Whelan, your NCAA basketball analyst. And today we are talking Conference Players of the Year and Conference Coaches of the Year, previewing a little bit of college basketball's top awards given out by each of the top conferences. And we're going to go through your Power Five, and then we're going to take a look at a couple other notable conferences like the Mountain West, like the West Coast Conference, and like the Missouri Valley Conference, and get an idea about what to expect coming from those conferences. Up first, we are taking a look at the American Athletic Conference. Now, the American Athletic Conference did produce our national champion a year ago with the University of Connecticut taking home the crown, and I've got another Husky winning the Conference Player of the Year award again. This time it's going to be Ryan Boatwright. The talented guard is one of the best defensive point guards in the country. He hounds you the entire length of the court. He does not let you get comfortable in the half court, and he certainly doesn't let you get comfortable in the full court as well. Offensively, he loves to turn his defense into offense, getting out in the break where he's most dangerous. Now, Ryan Boatwright is a capable shooter, capable slasher, capable finisher. I don't know that he's the same guy as a Shabazz Napier or other guards that UConn has had in the past, but certainly Ryan Boatwright is the latest in a line of high-level point guards that the Huskies have produced, and he is my pick for Conference Player of the Year. For the AAC Conference Coach of the Year, I am tabbing Fran Dunphy of Temple. Now, Temple has started the year off pretty strong, including a conference opening win over the University of Connecticut, those Huskies that I tabbed Ryan Boatwright to lead. So when you look at Temple, I think you think of what you always think of Temple, a disciplined, talented, well-coached team that is dangerous in a lot of different ways. If Temple can continue to produce well, continue to play together, they have a chance to push all the top teams in the AAC for the conference crown. And if so, I think that makes him the even more logical choice to be Coach of the Year. But nonetheless, I'm having Temple finish top three anyway, and I think Dunphy gets it done. Moving on to the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. Tons of coaching power, tons of program power, names that you know all up and down the conference standings. However, there's only one guy that can take home Conference Player of the Year. And that award is going to go, in my mind, to Jahlil Okafor, the freshman center from Duke. Jahlil has set himself up as one of the most dominant offensive players in the country so far, setting up matchups all across the land. Frank Kaminsky in Wisconsin, tons of times that he has proved himself to be reliable, to be a go-to guy, and to be everything that we expected the former number one player in the country to be when he stepped foot on Duke's campus. Now, for Jahlil, it's going to be about consistency in conference play. They know your weaknesses. They know your strengths. Can you set up counter moves for what they game plan for? Can you affect the game in multiple ways when your scoring is not what you are expecting it to be? That's going to be the question for Jahlil. Is he going to hit a freshman wall? I'm not necessarily expecting it. Jahlil is a talented individual out of the Chicago area, and I look for him to continue his leading scoring ways and take home the crown of ACC Player of the Year. ACC Coach of the Year is a tighter race. Names like Mike Krzyzewski, of course, always make you think that he could win the award, specifically when I have one of his players winning the Conference Player of the Year award. However, this year it is going to be Virginia's Tony Bennett. The Cavaliers are off to a thundering start, undefeated going into conference play, one of the top defensive teams in the country, as well as one of the most efficient offensive teams in the country. The Cavs have it rolling, and with a home court advantage that is, you might say that Duke has a one up on them. Louisville, certainly a home court advantage. However, the Cavs have built themselves a home court advantage as well, and I think they're ready to take the next step, ready to snatch up another number one seed coming out of the ACC. Whether they'll win the conference, I think that remains to be seen. I think they will, though. And I think it's going to be because of their head man, Tony Bennett, winning the award for ACC Coach of the Year. Moving on to the Big East. Maybe not a conference that has the same star power that it has had in years past. However, we're going to go to a classic power, a classic name, a Big East stalwart to find our Big East Player of the Year for this year. And it's going to be D'Angelo Harrison from St. John's. Now, Harrison is pouring in over 19 points per game, over 6 rebounds per game. He has always been a scorer. He's always been a guy that St. John's could rely on to put the ball in the basket at key times. However, this year he stepped it up in all facets of his game, playing better defense, leading this team, a St. John's team that finally looks to be living up to its promise. D'Angelo Harrison is one of the most underrated names in the country. Not a lot of people outside of New York, outside of Big East country, know his name very well. And I think it's time that people start paying attention. In a conference that is known for having high-scoring guards, flashy guards, high-scoring wings, flashy wings, D'Angelo Harrison has quietly gone under the radar and averaged over 16 points per game every season that he's been at St. John's. This year, he's going to finally get his due. This year, D'Angelo Harrison is going to be your Big East Player of the Year. Looking at Big East Coach of the Year, this is an interesting discussion. I think St. John's has made a huge leap, so that would mean Steve Lavin should be in the conversation. However, we're going to go to a name that you might not expect, and just for effect, I'm going to make sure I get it right. Oh, look at that. Chris Holtmann, Butler, interim head coach at Butler. Not a lot of people know who he is. Not a lot of people know what he's about. In fact, most people around the country still probably think that Brad Stevens is leading Butler. Those two Final Four runs, those two runs to the championship game, obviously turned some heads to what the Butler Bulldogs are all about. And this year, they are no different. They have not missed a beat. In fact, they entered conference play 10-3, one of the most surprising teams in the country, playing just the same style of basketball that they always have. Yes, they opened conference play with a loss at Villanova by 12. That's okay, though. I think the Bulldogs are poised to make a solid run in the Big East, making a bit of a better transition than they did a year ago. Look at Coach to win Coach of the Year. Moving on to the Big 12, tons of names to pick from here, and not all of them were the ones that we thought we'd be talking about preseason. Texas's Isaiah Taylor, just now getting back into the fold of things, just now cleared to return for the University of Texas. Miles Turner, not putting up the same gaudy stats that many thought he could, a la Jahlil Okafor at Duke. Cliff Alexander at Kansas, same thing. Wayne Selden at Kansas, same thing. Perry Ellis at Kansas, surely in the conversation. However, I'm looking at one guy, and it's George Niang from Iowa State to take home Big 12 Player of the Year. When he went down a year ago, Iowa State's chances to make a deep, deep run in the NCAA tournament were completely shot. Really what happened was he is a versatile player. He could play inside. He could play outside. He's not the most athletic guy on the court, but he's so incredibly versatile because he's so skilled. He has developed his game in high school. He's developed his game at Iowa State under the leadership of that coaching staff and become a better player every single year. He is one of the players that I think should be in the discussion for National Player of the Year after what he does in Big 12 play, which I think will be significant. George Niang, my Big 12 Player of the Year. Moving on to Big 12 Coach of the Year. Look, if Kansas wins another conference title, which if you've listened to podcasts, I did not predict them to do, but if he does, you have to look at Bill Self. That's over a decade of dominance in a conference. Nobody around the country can say that they've been doing that. However, this year, I predicted the crown to pass to the Cyclones of Iowa State. Now, if Texas sneaks up into things and finishes at the top of the table, I think Rick Barnes needs to be right in that conversation. Just over a year ago, he was considered to be on the ultimate hot seat at the University of Texas, completely underperforming at a school that doesn't even put that much pressure on their basketball program. However, he's bounced back. He has to be in the conversation, sure. But this year, it's about the mayor. Fred Hoiberg, Iowa State, is going to be your Big 12 Coach of the Year because he's going to pull through. He's going to get this talented team of transfers, of high school enrollees. He's put them all together, put together a team that is an absolute force when they're playing well. I've got the Cyclones winning the Big 12, and that means I've got Fred Hoiberg winning Coach of the Year in the Big 12 Conference. Shall we go to the Big 10 now? Looking up north, looking at Wisconsin. Wisconsin, you're going to take home 2 awards in my prediction. Big 10 Player of the Year, Frank Kaminsky. A lot of people had Sam Decker competing for this award coming into the year, but Big Frank is the key. Double-digit scoring, nearly double-digit rebounding. He can play in and out. He is the ultimate college player. Who knows what his NBA future will be? Athletic questions? Sure, they're out there. But I don't care at the college level because he's a 7-footer who's going to hit a 3 in your face, maybe drive on you from the high post, and definitely post up on you on the block. Defensively, capable shot blocker, smart team defender in that system. Frank Kaminsky is the best player the Big Ten has to offer this year. A dark horse, though. Look out for that pesky point guard from Ohio State. Otherwise, Kaminsky, it's all you, big guy. But Coach of the Year, let's stay up in Wisconsin. Let's stay in Madtown. Madison, Wisconsin represent. I'm going with Bo Ryan, the Wisconsin Badgers. Yet another year where it feels like Bo Ryan is not ever named among the top 5, 6 college coaches in basketball. I think that's an absolute shame. Bo Ryan consistently has that team, a team you do not want to play in March, in February, in December, in November. You don't want to see the Badgers because they will make you play their style of basketball. And Bo Ryan has that system down as much as anybody anywhere. Wisconsin moving on to win the Big Ten title, moving on to gain a #1 seed in the NCAA tournament, and Bo Ryan winning Conference Coach of the Year. Let's go down south for a little SEC action. And we just had a sweep in the Big Ten. How about we do it twice, this time in the SEC? Player of the Year, SEC, Willie Cauley-Stein, Kentucky. How much can you say about this fella? Against Louisville in a big-time non-conference showing, rivalry game, top 5 matchup, he didn't put the ball in the hole, but he controlled that game with his smarts, with his length, and with his ability to affect the game without scoring. The guy is the consummate college player. He's going to be a consummate pro. Just understands the game of basketball and continues to get better. Willie Cauley-Stein is going to do enough to statistically overcome his shortcomings. Because guess what? He's not going to average more than 15 points a game. He's not going to average more than 15 rebounds per game. He's not going to get the same playing time that other guys might get around the conference to jack up their stats and show their worth that way. However, Willie Cauley-Stein is the best player in the SEC. He is the best player on Kentucky. He is the best player, one of the best, in the country. Okay? He's going to win Conference Player of the Year because coaches and media understand his importance to this national title favorite. Sticking with the SEC, sticking with Kentucky, let's go with John Calipari for Coach of the Year. It's hard to pick against a guy when his team is favored to go undefeated, and even if they were to lose a game, they're going to be conference champions. Let's just be honest. They're going to win most of their games by at least 20. This guy has done something special with this team. I don't know that I've talked about it enough. I don't know that anybody has talked about it enough. The whole platoon idea, 2 teams of 5, a lot of pressure coming into the year to see how that works. He has pulled it off with flying colors. He has gone away from the platoon at times when he had to. He has brought Tyler Ulis, an undersized 5'9" point guard, along to complement his star-studded Harrison twins that are now in their sophomore year. John Calipari gets it. He gets what college basketball is about nowadays. It's about selling a dream of an NBA while still also being able to win games. He's done a masterful job at Kentucky so far. He's doing another masterful job again this year. John Calipari is going to be your SEC Coach of the Year. Let's run out west and take a look at the Pac-12. Pac-12 is a conference that is disappointed a little bit coming into conference play. However, there are a number of individual performers that deserve some praise. None more than my pick for Pac-12 Player of the Year. And that player resides in Berkeley, California, playing for Cunzo Martin and the Cal Bears. Tyrone Wallace. If you haven't heard me say his name enough, Tyrone Wallace. Tyrone Wallace can play some basketball, averaging over 19 points per game, over 6 rebounds per game, over 4 assists per game. Him and Daylon Wright are going to battle it out, in my opinion, along with Stanley Johnson from Arizona, for Player of the Year honors. You could also look at names like Chasen Randall at Stanford, Joseph Young at Oregon. However, I think it comes down to Ty Wallace. Cal is going to win enough games in conference play to keep him in the conversation, and I believe those wins are going to be a result of his stat-stuffing style. Tyrone Wallace is one of the best point guards in the country. He's one of the most under-talked-about players in the country. However, once he wins Pac-12 Player of the Year, another award heading to a Cal Bear, I don't think you can ignore him any longer. Pac-12 Coach of the Year. To me, this is a landslide. It is not difficult to pick a winner here because there is one program that a couple years ago was one of the worst Division I programs I had ever seen in my life. I covered the first season of the Pac-12 covering the Colorado Buffaloes, as well as the years before and after that. And when the Utah Utes came to town, it was an embarrassment. It was one of the worst coach teams, one of the worst talented teams, one of the worst teams in general that I have ever seen play basketball at a major level. The Utah Utes were disgusting. However, now, they're my pick to win the conference. And no one is more responsible for that than Larry Kustowiak, because the Utes are back. Sure, recruiting a guy like Daylon Wright helps. Still thinking about Tyrone Wallace. Recruiting a guy like Daylon Wright helps. He's a do-it-all type. He exploded on the conference scene and the national scene a year ago. But the guy that locked up that program for him was Jordan Loveridge. When that team was down in the dumps, when that program was pathetic, Jordan Loveridge, an in-state recruit, a top 100 recruit, took a chance on Coach K. He took a chance in Salt Lake City, and he committed to the Utes, and he signed with the Utes, and he enrolled at the University of Utah, and he has been a difference maker since his true freshman season. Now, when that foundation was set, this program was on the rise. Every single year, they have become more competitive, more talented, and better coached. Utah is back, baby. And it is one of the programs that college basketball fans that have been around for a while are glad to see back because it just feels right that there's basketball to be played again in Salt Lake City at a high level. and Coach K is responsible for it, and he is my Pac-12 Coach of the Year. Let's stay out west, previewing the WCC, the West Coast Conference. My Player of the Year resides up in Washington, Kyle Wiltshire, for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. The transfer for Kentucky and Portland native is back in the Pacific Northwest. He is back producing in the Pacific Northwest. He's playing a lot off of point guard Kevin Pangos. He is coached by one of the best coaches in the country, and he's playing for a program that allows their players to play to their strengths. Kyle Wiltshire is back. Kyle Wiltshire is experiencing a renaissance after working on his game a year ago and really recommitting himself to being a complete basketball player. The Gonzaga Bulldogs are rolling. They have a chance to go undefeated through conference play. Now, sure, conference is tough. There's going to be tests. But if they do, does Gonzaga have a chance to get back up to that 1 or 2 seed line in the NCAA tournament? I don't know, but if they do, a big reason is going to be the WCC Player of the Year in Kyle Wiltshire. Coach of the Year in that same conference, don't need no introduction from Mark Few. He's got Gonzaga rolling yet again. I'll keep it short and simple. Mark Few, your WCC Coach of the Year. What about the Mountain West? The Mountain West Conference has put out some of the best teams that we've seen recently at the mid-major level. And mid-major might not even cover it anymore. Programs like New Mexico, programs like SDSU, UNLV, surely have changed the perception of what mid-major basketball is all about. However, 2 of those programs are a bit down this year. Sure, UNLV has the upset over Arizona. However, they've underachieved with the talent that they've assembled there in Las Vegas. New Mexico, not the same program that it was 2 years ago. The talent isn't there. The coaching transition has not been quite as smooth as they expected down in Albuquerque. San Diego State dealt a couple early losses that we didn't necessarily expect to see them have at this point. However, Steve Fisher and staff down there on the Mesa have things rolling, and you can expect that the Aztecs are going to be as tough as anybody in the Mountain West. However, for Player of the Year, I think you got to get up to elevation. You got to get up to Laramie, Wyoming, and go watch Larry Nance play. Larry Nance is an athletic forward, a skilled forward, a nuanced forward, a guy who understands the game of basketball and has been brought along steadily by that coaching staff. I love what I see from Larry Nance. How about we get into a little Coach of the Year talk for the Mountain West? And that name, just a few miles south from where Larry Nance and the Cowboys of Wyoming play, still at elevation, a couple of thousand feet lower though. Let's go to Fort Collins and the Colorado State Rams and their coach, Larry Eustachy. Larry Eustachy took over this program from Tin Miles, a program that was already rolling a little bit. Veteran team when he first took over. A year ago, they took a step back decidedly. We're not ready for big-time college basketball. However, this year they were one of the last undefeated teams left in the country. Larry Eustachy has things rolling in Fort Collins. Up to his old ways. JUCO transfers, D1 transfers, with a few select high school recruits thrown in. The Rams are rolling, Larry Eustachy is feeling good, and there could not be enough Diet Coke on that sideline for my man. Larry Eustachy is going to be your Coach of the Year in the Mountain West Conference. Wrapping things up with the Missouri Valley, one of the top mid-major conferences again, we got to go to Wichita. We got to look at a guy like Fred VanVleet for Conference Player of the Year. The heady point guard has led the Shockers again. Now, they are not undefeated going into conference play like they were a year ago. However, still tough as nails. A couple losses that they've suffered at Salt Lake City, to Utah, certainly nothing to scoff at. But the loss in Hawaii against George Washington in the final of the Diamond Head Classic has people scratching their heads just a little bit. However, I think the Shockers are ready to bounce back. Not only because of my Conference Player of the Year pick, but because of my Conference Coach of the Year pick in Coach Marshall. The Shockers really have evolved into one of the top destinations across college basketball for maybe guys that aren't going to that high major elite level. Nabbing top 100 recruits out of cities like Kansas City, St. Louis. They have locked up their recruiting territory, and the Shockers are here to stay. Those are my picks for Missouri Valley Coach of the Year and Player of the Year.